Hey, good morning and welcome to Coffee with Kevin. It's still pretty early this morning. I woke up to come outside and kind of listen to the city around me wake up. What's funny is I live close enough to the country that I can hear somebody off in the distance, their rooster crowing this morning. That's a fun thing for me. But I also hear the America wake up and people here in Oklahoma wake up. But waking up is something that we really need to do when it comes to politics. And Markwayne Mullin, oh my gosh. During my 43 years on the railroad, I had a name for people who got so excited watching trains that they forgot all common sense. I called them rail fans, and sometimes the guys around me, they called them foamers. These are people who love the spectacle of the train so much they'll stand right on the tracks trying to get that perfect picture as the locomotive is barreling down right on top of them. They're thrilled by the noise and the power, but they're not the ones responsible for running the train. And I think that's something worth remembering when we start talking about leadership. And Markwayne Mullin, he just doesn't have what it takes. I'd like to talk to you more about that. Welcome to Coffee with Kevin. This morning I'm standing out here with a cup of coffee, looking at the world around me and reminiscing of looking out the window of a train as the country rolls by in the early morning light. When you spend 43 years on the railroad, you learn something about leadership. You learn the difference between someone who can actually run a train and someone who just likes standing next to the engine while it's making noise. Because not every locomotive is built the same. Some locomotives are A units. Those are the ones that have control stands. That's the one that the engineer sits in and controls the train with. It has the throttle, the brakes, and has the responsibility of the entire train and every car behind it. And then there are B units. They've got horsepower, they're made of steel, they have all the required mechanisms inside to move the train, and they look impressive sitting in the yard, but they don't have a control stand. By themselves, they can't run the train. That's why they're called B units. And that thought crossed my mind when I saw the news that Donald Trump fired Kristi Noem and once Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin to run the United States Department of Homeland Security. Now let's talk about Mullin for a minute. Over the past few weeks, he's been on television talking about Iran and saying things like, "You can smell war in the air." That might sound dramatic on TV, except for one simple fact. Markwayne has never served in the military. He's never deployed, yet he talks about war supposedly smelling like something that is familiar to him. And it's not. And when it comes to senators, he is the least educated of anybody in the Senate currently. And then we got to talk about one of his Senate hearings recently about education, where he asked the Secretary of Education the question, what was we ranked nationally? That wasn't meant to be funny. He didn't say this as comedy. That's the way he naturally talks sometimes. Think about that. A United States Senator asking about education policy, and the question itself comes out as, what was we ranked? But when you compare him to most senators, many of whom hold law degrees and graduate degrees, his educational background stands out as one that is lacking immensely. And frankly, sometimes it shows in the way that he communicates complex policy issues. And then people here in Oklahoma wonder why we get a bad rap from people outside of Oklahoma who call us hicks and stupid. Well, I'm sorry, Markwayne Mullin is that example that people look at. Then we got to go back to January 6th when members of Congress were being evacuated as rioters stormed the Capitol. Video from that day shows Markwayne hiding behind a bench. Yet today, he talks tough about strength and conflict on television. I mean, we're talking about the same guy who is so vain because of his height that he had to stand on a box when he was in a debate with a fellow Republican for the Senate race. Now here's the real issue. The Department of Homeland Security is one of the most complicated agencies in the federal government. It oversees FEMA and its disaster response, the Coast Guard, border security, cybersecurity. That's the control stand of a very long and very heavy train. And when leadership starts being chosen based on loyalty to one man instead of competence to run the system, you're not selecting someone who can think independently, make difficult decisions, and be successful. You're selecting a lapdog, someone whose primary job is not to manage the system, but to defend the person who appointed them. That's Markwayne. And that's when the railroad gets very dangerous, because the job requires judgment, experience, independent thinking, and a lapdog isn't running the train. It's the same as coupling a B unit as the lead locomotive on a train and hoping nobody notices it. It's all power, no brain. But the American people are riding in the cars behind that train, and when the person in the control stand doesn't understand the machinery, everybody Nobody on board feels the consequences. This has been Coffee with Kevin, and remember, this morning's segment is a companion to our weekly Coffee with Democrats show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. As we look down the track of another day, let's keep the conversation rolling.